23rd, 1934. 4 Texas officers and 2 Louisiana officers waited for Bonnie and Clyde on the Louisiana State Highway 154 near Gippsland, Louisiana. They fired 130 rounds into their stolen Ford V8. Bonnie was 23, Clyde was 25. What is going on, everyone? Welcome back for another exciting travel vlog. As you can tell by the title, we are in for a good one today. We are right outside the city of Dallas. Beautiful skyline right there. We're at the Trinity River Park. Now, Bonnie and Clyde, notorious gangsters, bank robbers from the 1930s. I'm pretty sure the majority of you will know who Bonnie and Clyde is. If you don't, they were exactly that. They were famous back in the 1920s, 30s, gangsters, bank robbers, killers, all the above. But I've always had a fascination with them. Funny enough, I grew up definitely knowing who they were. My parents always thought Bonnie and Clyde were very interesting. So much so that our 2 cats growing up were named Bonnie and Clyde. So I've been wanting to make this video for such a long time. Finally moved down to Dallas last year. We're only 30 minutes from these locations today, so I figured I would have to do it. Anyway, what we're doing today, we're taking you on the whole story of Bonnie and Clyde. Where they grew up, where they went to school, where they worked, where they traveled in the area, where they killed police officers, and now where they ended up at their gravesites at the end. They were shot and killed in a different state in Louisiana, Gippsland, Louisiana. Obviously, we're not going there today. That'll be a whole nother video in itself. However, we're gonna take you on the whole story of their journey today, starting in the marshlands right here. Let's go. Today, our story begins right here. Trinity River Park Memorial, as it is known today. Back in the day, this was known as Trinity River Squatters Camp. And ladies and gentlemen, this is where the notorious Clyde Barrow grew up, right in the marshlands here. Trinity River Squatters Camp, 1910s, early 20s. This is where Clyde Barrow grew up. Part of Dallas today. Now what we have to remember is back in the day, right here, this wasn't a part of Dallas. Dallas was there. The folks of Dallas considered this to be like the outcast. This is where the homeless would go, the very poor. Just a sight to see. Now, growing up, Clyde's family, they didn't really have anything. They slept here in the marshlands. Couldn't even afford a tent. Their family had a wagon. Mom, Dad, Clyde, all of his brothers and sisters, they would sleep under the wagon right down here. Now what's crazy to me is, you know, just like we see now, I'm sure Clyde, you know, so many times would stand down there, look at the beautiful skyline, see all the people in suits and dresses, and then I wonder what just she thought of that. I thought it would also be a cool idea in the beginning to read a quote that was published in 2010 by Fort Worth-based author Jeff Wynn. Quote unquote, 2 scrawny, basically poor kids who steal cars but have to camp by rivers and relieve themselves behind bushes and eat Vienna sausages out of cans, who were both crippled, both desperate, a lot of time badly wounded, a lot of the time doomed and knowing it. Jeff continues, the newspapers made a huge fuss over them, made them into something they weren't. pretty much because the only reason people would buy newspapers in the Depression was for the entertainment. Now, after living in the marshlands for so many years, most of his childhood years growing up, as he got a little older, maybe 9, 10, 11, his family saved up enough money to move in to a filling station. Also, they used the back part of the house, right on Singleton Avenue. That's where we're going to next. Right down the road. Let's go. I cannot believe we've made it, but here we are, the Clyde Barrow childhood house. So as I was saying before, when his parents saved up enough money, they bought this filling station, and his dad ran pretty much a gas station. Come fill up your car right there. And a family of 9 lived in the back. Go check the back out. This is definitely a sketchy as hell area, so I do not want to be here that long. Yeah, private property. Guess they boarded that up. This is where they lived. 9 people living in this back part. I mean, this is like not even the size of our kitchen, which I cannot imagine having 9 people live here. I wonder if we can see anything inside. Wow. No, I can't see anything inside. Only the reflection. This is insane. Clyde Barrow, famous Bonnie and Clyde. We're coming in and out of this door, this porch. Probably they would play in the backyard right here. This is just something. Here's the back of the building, house. Everything is just so boarded up, but I can imagine people try and break in here all the time. Now what's crazy to me is this house, I mean, it's a dump, let's be honest. It's been here since the 1910s, 1920s. And from what I've read, the city wants to tear it down. The people of Dallas, for, you know, knowing that it's Clyde's house, they won't let them. Then they want to tear it down. Then they want to leave it. Then the people want to make it a national landmark. I mean, it should be. Everybody knows who Bonnie and Clyde is. And this building is still standing here. It should definitely make it a national landmark. Wow. Back in the day, pull your car up here. Mr. Barrow would be there to fill your gas tank up. This is nuts. So as you can see, Clyde definitely had just a rough childhood growing up. Definitely rough. But he made it through, and then it ended up becoming one of the most notorious gangsters in the world. All right, next we're going to a Bonnie Parker location. We're going to the elementary school or the high school. I'm not sure if it's an elementary school or a high school. I guess we'll find out when we get there. But we're going to the Bonnie Parker school, where she attended school. I believe it's 9 minutes down the road. Let's go. So this part is obviously a voiceover. We were going to try and pull in this parking lot here at Bonnie's school, but as you can see, there's a car there. It also said private property. There's cameras on do not enter, so we thought it was best just to do drive-by, and I would do the voiceover. Here's some old photos of the school. I believe it's 95 years old. And what was cool, we still got to see the signs on both sides. The one side it said boys entrance, the other side it said girls entrance, which I thought was cool. But apparently Bonnie was a very good student, had hopes and dreams of being a poet or an actress. A lot more than what she became. Next location, Sidney Lanier Elementary School. Clyde Barrow's once upon a time school that he attended. It's actually still a functioning school, and they use it for when we have elections, voting and stuff. You can go vote here, but let's take a look. So Sidney Lanier Elementary, I believe it's still called that today. I cannot find any signs though on the front of what the school is called. But funny enough, this is 2 minutes down the road from Clyde Barrow's gravesite. And it's kind of eerie that, you know, where he went to school for a short time, he was soon to be laid to rest right down the road from there. But Clyde was not a fan of school. From what I understand, he briefly enrolled in school in the 6th grade, didn't even make it all the way through the year, dropped out, and then began working different jobs, also began stealing, was arrested for the first time at the age of 17. Now I realize in the past, you know, not everybody went to school, but like I was trying to think of putting myself in that situation. So Clyde was here in 6th grade. When I was in 6th grade, I was 12 years old. It's my final year in Little League. You know, I was a good student, loved school, getting ready to go to middle school. And I just can't imagine, you know, dropping out of school at age 12, going to work, starting to steal, you know, and then eventually getting arrested 5 years later for the first time. But Clyde Barrow's once upon a time school. Can you just imagine a young 12-year-old Clyde Barrow going up these steps into this very building, going to school? I wonder what window he would have looked out of if he was on the 1st floor or 2nd floor. Something. We have arrived to our next location. Complete opposite side of Dallas where everything else is, but here we are at the old Hargraves Cafe. This is where Bonnie Parker used to work. This building still sits. Wow. Still sits. Let's talk about it. So back in the day, this used to be Hargraves Cafe. Bonnie began working here on Swiss Avenue in 1928, and the building still sits to this day. She started working here after she separated from her husband, needed some income to work. Now back in that day, from what I read online, there was 3 different jobs a young girl can do. She can either work in the factories, work in a shop or a restaurant exactly like this, or they can become prostitutes. So luckily Bonnie was smart enough to say, hey, I'm gonna go work in this cafe. Now we're gonna see if we can see anything inside. I believe it's all, wow, yeah, it's all gutted. I don't think you guys can see much of the reflection, but oh, there you go. Looks nothing like the cafe that it used to. There's a piece of bread. Somebody didn't finish their sandwich on the table there. Wow. Now, what I find one of the most fascinating stories about this place is I read online that one of Bonnie's regular customers, now keep in mind this was in the late 20s, a few years before she even got hooked up with Clyde, but one of her regular customers was Ted Hinton, who ended up being one of the police officers that shot and killed her at the scene. Now, another story that I read, across the street from here, a girl used to work at the laundromat, and she said that they were never allowed to go across the street for their lunch breaks. So Bonnie would actually come over to them, get their lunch order, come back to the cafe here, make them lunch, and then bring it over for her. That's how nice of a person she was when she was younger to do that. But yeah, Bonnie was a very ambitious, poor girl, but very ambitious. You know, at the time wanted to make something of herself, just like the bad boys too much. Next location, this is Herbert Street. This is the original street that Bonnie and Clyde met at a friend's house. Now, Dallas today looks nothing like Dallas did back in the 1920s. Everything in this area has been torn down and rebuilt as far as I can see online, but this is Herbert Street where Bonnie and Clyde met for the first time. We are in Southlake, Texas, away from everything else, probably about 30 minutes outside of Dallas. The only location up this way is the memorial for two state troopers. I have their names right here. H.D. Murphy and Edward Wheeler, who were killed literally right here. The memorial's right across the street. Were killed by Bonnie and Clyde on April 1st, 1934. The statue says it all. So we're gonna jaywalk across the street and get to the memorial right now. We, the people of the state of Texas, acknowledge and thank troopers Edward Brian Wheeler and H.D. Murphy for the great sacrifice they made to keep the public safe. Troopers Wheeler and Murphy were shot to death Easter Sunday, April 1st, 1934, near this site on West Dove Road by the infamous criminals Bonnie Parker and Clyde Barrow. Wheeler and Murphy stopped their motorcycles near Parker and Barrow's car, thinking a motorist needed assistance. When they approached, they were shot. Their efforts will stand the test of time. May God bless their souls. Wow. This was erected in 1996. Right behind the statue, I wrote this down so I would not forget it. So, Murphy was 22 and Wheeler was 26. Murphy left behind a fiancée who actually wore her wedding dress to his funeral. And then Wheeler was survived by his wife of 2 years, Doris Edwards. Doris quoted, "I want the world to know what vicious killer and murderers they are." Doris Edwards. So West Dove Road, back in the day, this was part of Bonnie and Clyde's escape route. Of course, it was all dirt roads back then. But Dallas was, I believe Dallas is that way, and then west this way. But yep, two young police officers, I think they were only on the force a few years, pulled over, to see if they needed help, and then Bonnie and Clyde, being Bonnie and Clyde, shot and killed them right about here. I forgot to mention that the Barrow gang, not just Clyde, but also his brother Buck, Marvin, the rest of the Barrow gang, they killed 9 police officers. So that's a decent amount. That doesn't even include all the other people they killed, but they killed 9 police officers. Next, we're gonna go see where Clyde ended up himself. Clyde Barrow's gravesite coming up. Let's go. We've made it to the next stop. Western Heights Cemetery. Definitely looks like an old, creepy cemetery. And they do not cut the grass. I believe Clyde is buried right over there. Let's go check it out. Western Heights Cemetery. Now I know there's Civil War soldiers and there's soldiers from both world wars that are also buried here. I'm not going to be looking for their graves, but not kept well. However, they do have a nice, look at this, a nice walking path to Clyde's grave, straight ahead. So Clyde is definitely the most visited tombstone in this whole cemetery. It's actually not that big, and definitely not taken care of like Bonnie's cemetery was. But I mean, this is also a sketchy area. However, the whole Barrow family's buried right here. Let's go check out Clyde's grave. Buried right beneath us, the one and only Clyde Barrow. March 24th, 1909 to May 23rd, 1934. Buried next to his brother, Marvin. Everyone knew him as Buck. March 14th, 1905 to July 29th, 1933. Gone but not forgotten. We have some flowers, fake money, cigarettes, Bud Light cap, wow. Some old Christmas decorations. Crazy. I guess this was his parents as well. Elvin Barrow. Wow. And the crazy thing, so Bonnie's wishes were to be buried next to Clyde. Her mom was not a fan of that, said that is not happening. So funny enough, there's an open spot right here that maybe one day Bonnie Parker will be moved to and buried at. But yep, there's an open spot on purpose. So Clyde Barrow. All right, I know this was a long video, but we've made it to our final location for today. We are here at Crown Hill Memorial Cemetery, the complete opposite side of town where Clyde Barrow was buried. And I've been waiting a good while to see this one. Just like with Clyde, Bonnie's right there. I cannot believe Bonnie Parker, famous Bonnie and Clyde, is buried right beneath the ground. This is crazy. So, as the story goes, her wishes were to be buried next to Clyde. Her mom was not having any of that. She said pretty much hell no. So she's next to her mom, Emma Parker. More than 20,000 people attended Bonnie's funeral. As I mentioned before, Clyde had a little over 10, but Bonnie took the majority, over 20,000. Now what's interesting is she was originally buried in Fish Trap Cemetery. And then in 1945, they moved her here to Crown Hill Memorial. There's the mausoleum up there. It's actually a really nice cemetery, especially with the sun going down. Wow. Bonnie Parker, October 1st, 1910 to May 23rd, 1934. As the flowers are all made sweeter by the sunshine and the dew, so this old world is made brighter by the lives of all folks like you. Wow. Of course, there's shotgun shells for her, flowers, quarters, pennies. Someone left some lipstick. Bonnie Parker. Wow. And her mom, Emma Parker, 1886 to 1944, loving mother, God's care. Something. Well guys, that wraps it up for me today. I hope you enjoyed this just amazing video. I've been wanting to make this since we moved down here. It's something, you know, I always, like I said before, I always knew who Bonnie and Clyde were. My parents always thought Bonnie and Clyde were interesting. And I just can't believe I got to see all this amazing stuff today. So I really hope you enjoyed. And if you did, give this video a thumbs up. If you haven't already, hit the subscribe button down below. Thank you all so much for coming along. Just a great day here in Dallas, Texas. Until next time, we'll see you all soon on my travel channel. And rest in peace, Clyde Barrow, Bonnie Parker, and the officers who were all perished by the outlaws. Take care, guys.